Well, good morning, my brothers. Ken Haynes, Music City Tres Dias, number 37, where I sat at the table of Paul. It's March 31st, so we turn to the book of Proverbs, chapter 31, for God's daily dose of wisdom. You know, Proverbs 31 is probably best known for its treatise on the excellent wife. There are many other verses surrounding that, which largely get skipped over and ignored as a result of the wonderful words that Solomon has in regards to the wife. But it's verse 3 that jumped off the page today. And that's outside of that area talking about the wife. And it reads like this: Do not give your strength to women, or your ways to that which destroys kings. What's he talking about? Well, there's a verse in Deuteronomy. In Deuteronomy, the Lord is laying out prescriptions for the nation of Israel for when they come into the promised land. And in this particular section, he's talking about what's going to happen when you ask for a king. He knows they're going to ask for a king. We know that doesn't turn out real well at first, but eventually David gets to the throne. But before that, God is laying out a prescription of what the kings need to do and what they ought not to do when they enter into the promised land. And in verse 17, we read this, Deuteronomy 17, verse 17. He shall not multiply wives for himself, or else his heart will turn away, nor shall he greatly increase silver and gold for himself. Okay, that gives us a bit of a context for this thing which he says, or ways which destroys kings. These are the things which are going to destroy kings: multiplying wives for himself, because his heart is going to turn away, and greatly increasing silver and gold for himself. Notice that clause, for himself. He's trying to keep the king's heart away from the love of money. And we see this as a theme throughout the Bible. In fact, there's a consistency between the New Testament and the Old Testament, because we read here in 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 3, Paul is writing to his protege Timothy, and he's explaining the role of an overseer. Okay, so in the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy, God is explaining some things that need to happen in the life of the king. Paul is explaining to Timothy what needs to happen in the life of an overseer. Very similar situation. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 3. It is a trustworthy statement. If any man aspires to the office of overseer, it is a fine work he desires to do. An overseer then must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, prudent, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not addicted to wine or pugnacious, that means fighting, but gentle, peaceable, free from the love of money. So that theme of being the husband of one wife, not multiplying wives for yourselves, and being free from the love of money, is repeated there in 1 Timothy chapter 3. So this idea here in Proverbs 31:3, do not give your strength to women, or your ways to that which destroys kings. When he says, do not give your strength to women, he's talking about multiplying wives for himself. The idea of keeping a harem back in those days was something that was very common amongst kings. And so God is telling the people in Deuteronomy 17:17, he shall not multiply wives for himself. That's the same idea that we find here in Proverbs 31:3. Do not give your strength to women. Do not multiply wives for yourself, or your ways to that which destroys kings. It's comforting to me that there is this consistency throughout the Bible. In a world that shifts and changes, where you can be a man one day and a woman the next day, and all this idea of changing the very foundations of what God has laid forth in nature. When the world is going crazy and doing things like this, it's comforting to me to know that There is a consistency in God's word, that God never changes, that he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And we can say with the psalmist, as we read in Psalms 46, verses 1 through 3, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth should change, and though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains quake at its swelling pride. Those are things which would be very upsetting. Mountains slipping into the heart of the sea, waters roaring and foaming, and the mountains quaking. Those are things which shake the very foundations of earth. And we're seeing that in a very similar way in the spiritual sense, in a societal sense. But he says here in Psalms 46 that God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. I hope that encourages you. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He will not change. He loves you with an everlasting love, and he is for you. God bless you, my brothers. I love each and every one of you. Go out and make a difference in someone's life today. God bless you.